Hi, everybody. I'm back. Yes, it's me. So nice to have you back again. This is day 3. So for those of you that are just joining in, um, June is my birthday month. And yes, I celebrate all month. Yes, I do. But I also wanted to give back. And I am a lifelong learner. And I wanted to bring on subject matter experts where I could learn from them also. And I think it's always important for us to just remain open, remain curious, to maybe take home one thing from this whole symposium that you can maybe utilize immediately. Before we go there, I want you to know that if you go to smallspacepilates.com/revitalize, you can click on any of the speaker's picture and it will go right to their website. And you can figure out more about them and look at what they're doing because they're doing some amazing things. You can also ask questions live. We will take a break where you're able to ask those questions and get them answered. Also, this is being brought to you by Small Space Pilates and Sisters in Service podcast. So, and if you can't join us, remember that there's always the replay. It will live on YouTube and you can take a look at it whenever you want to. So I am thrilled to introduce Debi Robinson. Debi is a bone health expert, a certified yoga therapist, and a functional health coach. She's an instructor at the Torrance Memorial Medical Center, a mentor for the yoga therapy program at Loyola Marymount University. Wow, she's busy. And a sought-after speaker. With over 20 years of experience coaching women through osteoporosis, Debi understands the journey all too well. At 51, she underwent a total hip replacement and experienced firsthand the fear and frustration of feeling like her bones were fragile and unreliable. So she empowers women to take control of their bone health with personalized coaching programs. So I would like to welcome Debi. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. So, Debi, how did you? We all know, we've heard, we don't know, but we've heard that, you should maintain your bone density. And we tend to think that our bones are, that they're bone, unless you have a break from an accident or something happening in sports. You don't think of your bones as being fragile. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your journey. Is what happened that you had to have this hip issue and go through the recovery and go through all of that?
Yeah, so my body was broken when I was 50. My hip joint was collapsed at 50, and I stopped living my life. And so I feel like I ran ahead. I experienced something that ladies maybe around age 80 are experiencing, initially anyway. But then the feeling of feeling fragile and breakable was so profound for me. And that's what I notice in women that receive a diagnosis of osteoporosis or osteopenia. They feel fragile. And so I say this chose me, because the journey of what happened to me at that age just made me all of a sudden have to think about my bones. And we don't ever think about our bones.
And it puts you on the path to what you're doing now. Debi, can you take a minute and just explain to our audience what's the difference between osteopenia and osteoporosis?
Okay, so first of all, our bones start to break down when we're 35. They build up.
Oh, that's sad.
It's sad. So at the age of 35 is when the bones and the muscles start to break down more than they build up. Up until that point, it was more build up than breakdown. And then it starts to become more breakdown. And then when we start to go through hormonal shifts in our late 40s and then menopause in the 50s, we lose even more bone density. So there's a process of losing bone, and there's a machine that determines what is the state of your bone health. Now, it's called a DEXA machine. It's an X-ray, typically not given until we're in menopause, or in some cases, I'm actually noticing a lot of women don't even have their DEXA scan until they're 65 when Medicare kicks in. So you get this machine, your gynecologist, endocrinologist, or PCP orders it. You get this diagnosis from this X-ray, And if your numbers, if your bone density, they compare you to a 35-year-old, because that's when the greatest amount existed. So they compare you. And if you are -1 to -2.4, you are considered osteopenia. So that's the stage of loss. Once you get to -2.5 or above, it's actually now a disease. And that disease of bone loss is called osteoporosis.
Debi, how do women know that they might be susceptible to osteopenia or osteoporosis? Like, how would I know that maybe this is something I should look into when maybe I'm in my 20s and maybe early 30s? Are there any signs? Is it, am I susceptible to it because I had, my mom had it or a grandmother had it? Is it kind of like that?
Well, those are great questions. And so first of all, I'd say they call it a silent disease because it used to be diagnosed when somebody would fall and fracture. And a lot of the times the women that I've worked with, they either fall and fracture their wrist, even if they're not in the high risk group, or they're going to have some kind of musculoskeletal surgery. And the orthopedic surgeon might either say after surgery, your bones, you need to check on them. So that's one aspect. In terms of the way you would feel. So the symptoms of osteoporosis, unfortunately, there's not a lot of big symptoms. And it's usually not till later in life. So one is loss of height. And this could be because if your spine starts to fracture, which is where half of all the fractures in osteoporosis are in the spine. So if your spine fractures, then you start to lose height. Pain in your back pain could be an indication of that. I'm going to say that there are some silent ways that your body is slowly losing bone. I call it dissolving bone that you might not be aware of. And one of those symptomatically would be gut. So if you have any digestive issues or if you have chronic constipation, if you're not having a daily bowel movement, which is an indication of a really healthy digestive system, then those are going to be two ways I would say. So anybody that's younger, and I say younger, premenopause, looking at, are you symptomatic of gut health issues? Don't have a daily bowel movement. And then of course, cancer and some of the medications that are known, actually those are steroids too. So any kind of anti-inflammatories, gut issues, and cancer. So there's a lot of contributing factors to bone loss.
Wow, that's not a very attractive list, Debi. I'm just gonna say, it's not like something that just blares at you. It almost seems like it's intuitive. Like you almost think, maybe I should go. Like something's telling you that maybe you should go get your, a DEXA scan, or maybe talk to your doctor and find out if this is something that you need. I want to backtrack just a little bit. That at the age of 51, having the hip replacement, because I've spoken to many clients that I have in Pilates who've had a hip replacement. What was your recovery like your frame of mind when you went in the hospital, you had the hip replacement, you go home, and what happened?
Well, I don't think I'm the typical person. So I'm a yoga therapist. I teach.
So you knew what to do.
I was teaching 7 classes at the time, or 8 classes at the time at a hospital. So, and I have perfect attendance. I never miss. So by the way, my hip replacement was June 9th, 2017. So I'm at that 7th anniversary. So I took some time, 10 days to recover. And after 10 days, I said, okay, I'm going back. I went back to teaching. And so I stood on that leg. I was walking on that leg. So I recovered very quickly. And I recovered very quickly because before I went into that surgery, I had been practicing yoga for so many years, almost every single day. And so every test that I had by physical therapist, orthopedic surgeon, or chiropractors, they all said, we do not think you're going to need a hip replacement. Because my body was so mobile, my joints were so mobile because of yoga. And then when they looked at the x-ray, he said, okay, you're bone on bone, it's time. The other thing I did, so that was from my musculoskeletal health and mental emotional with the breath work and meditation. And then I also ran labs on myself. So once I had the hip replacement, I run functional labs, and I ran functional labs. And then I adopted a protocol that would feed my bones. So I ate right. I healed my gut. I stopped eating inflammatory triggering foods like gluten, dairy, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, and nourished my bones, thought about how am I going to build my bones with food? How do I remove things that are going to dissolve them? And so it's never just one thing. It's a lifestyle.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that you said that. I do know that I have had clients that had a hip replacement, and because they were active prior, and this guy was a biker, he had a hip replacement, and 2 weeks later he was on the bike. And he said, my doctor said, as long as I feel good. So I think the what I keep hearing is that, moving prior to, even if you have to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement, that activity is going to help you in your recovery. Is it safe to say that, Debbie?
Yeah. And, the hip is the best joint to replace. It is such a great joint. The knee is a lot harder. And I work with a lot of clients that have all of these different replacement parts. So yes, everything is a use it or lose it proposition. We've got to use our body always, every day, not just when we show up to Pilates or show up to yoga, but really learning daily functional movement and understanding that breakdown accelerates when you leave your 30s. This is why we don't see any high-level athletes. Like, think about football players. Think about the quarterbacks. They're always talking about their age because there is a time frame when this musculoskeletal physical body is at its peak, and it starts to degenerate
And
around.
it's downhill from there.
No, it's not. Not if they do Pilates and yoga.
That's true.
I feel amazing. I'm in my late 50s. I travel, I
Yeah.
hike, I teach 5 classes a week. I walk at least 10,000 miles. 10,000 miles.
I'm sorry. Wow, you're good.
I try to walk 10,000 steps a day because, I know what it's like to be broken. I remember when I couldn't walk and I couldn't hike. And, for those that can walk, which is almost everyone, get up and walk.
Just
At a minimum.
move.
Move.
Yeah, just move. So would it be safe to say that, that a primary challenge for women is staying, not staying, but getting and keeping a routine where they're moving, whether it's yoga, whether it's Pilates, whether it's walking, some kind of movement that's going to challenge, because you challenge the muscles and you reinforce that, and it helps your bones also. And can you talk about a little bit how once you have osteopenia, you can't reverse it, but you can kind of stop it in its tracks.
Ooh, but I'm gonna blow that out of the water. You can
Uh-oh.
100% reverse it because we have been falsely led, or really naively, it's been a naivete. We have lumped osteoporosis and bone loss into this category of something that happens as you age and something that gets worse. No, it's a metabolism. And so just like type 2 diabetes, obesity, just like these are what we call lifestyle-based or metabolic diseases. We know we can reverse diabetes and heart disease and obesity with lifestyle changes. Osteoporosis is not a degenerative or progressive degenerative disease like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis. It's not like that. And we thought it was. So my big thing is to say, bone loss is reversible. Osteoporosis is reversible. I see it happen all the time. I interview a lot of doctors on my podcast that specialize in bone health. And they tell me, I ask them, is bone loss reversible? Is osteoporosis reversible? And they say yes. So it is reversible.
Interesting. I just learned something new today. And it's really interesting that, I've been moving my whole life from sports I went right into fitness. When should a woman actually think about getting a bone scan or a DEXA scan?
it would be amazing if they can ask for a baseline. So a baseline would be, okay, I'm 40 or I'm 35, or I had cancer and I was on treatment, or I've had chronic gut issues my whole life, or I have celiac. I mean, there's certain diseases that are going to affect digestion where you cannot absorb nutrients to build bones. So any kind of anything that would affect your minerals or digestion, and to ask the doctor for a baseline DEXA scan. It's a really low grade X-ray. And so you're not exposed to a lot of radiation. And so to get a baseline so that then you can actually monitor that maybe every 5 years, maybe every 10 years. And then you would actually see what's happening. And, when we see something, when we monitor something or track something, as you know, as somebody in the fitness world or someone that works with others to help them move as a movement specialist, that when we track things, then we're able to either stay motivated to do them or stay on track. Or when you notice that you have improvement, it kind of keeps you going, right? It gives that little pep in your step to say, okay, I'll do it today again.
Absolutely. I think it's important. I think a lot of women that I meet they're younger too, but mostly midlife and later, as they've never moved before. And it's only because of an injury they had, or, something happened and their doctor goes, look, you need to either do yoga or Pilates. And it's hard for them to understand why their body let them down. There's that part of your brain that just goes, I thought my bones were forever. You know what I mean? Like, it's that, it kind of sucks. But I think you're getting information. I think your body's giving you information, and we need to listen. So, Debi, when we talk about strengthening our bones, and I know I could answer this, but what types of things do you tell your clients about ways to incorporate bone strengthening activities? Because in midlife, we're still busy. So what types of things do you recommend to your clients and to your classes?
Okay. Well, I say that for your whole life, you've been standing on 2 feet to brush your teeth. Try doing it on 1 foot. So single leg balance when you're washing the dishes, when you're heating up your tea, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're standing outside and you met a friend on this corner or in the supermarket, stand on one leg often. And if you need to start at first by putting the other foot on the floor as a kickstand and then sliding the other foot up so it's on your lower leg, make sure you're not pushing into joints. So you don't want to be pushing into the ankle or pushing into the knee. So single leg balance is going to work on balance for fall prevention and fracture prevention. It's going to strengthen the muscles, joint coordination, and balance and strength in the standing leg. You're going to be compressing the top of the femur bone, the largest bone in the body, the hip joint. You're going to press that bone into the socket, into your pelvis. And that area, the neck of the femur, that is the most precarious and actually deadly place to fracture. So
yes,
single leg balance, I would say, can be done everywhere, anywhere, and often and daily. So
absolutely.
so that's a big one. But I'm going to tell you that the number one area I would say to focus on is your posture.
Oh, thank you, Debi, for saying that.
And I'm going to say that we all grew up with our moms telling us to stand up straight. And I travel around the world, and if you look at so many cultures, there's so much emphasis on upright posture, or women often, maybe there's men in some cases, but women are often carrying things on their heads. So when I go to Bali, I take people on wellness journeys to Bali. We get to try on the offerings that are like have all this fruit on it, and it's really high up. So the reason why posture is so important is because half of all the fractures in osteoporosis are in the spine. And they happen because I like to say, think about your body like an ice cream cone, and your legs are like the cone. And it's 3 scoops of ice cream. So your pelvis is a scoop, your rib cage is a scoop, and your head is a scoop. So if you have 3 scoops, just like an ice cream cone, if that top scoop starts falling forward, it could slide off. So now you have all this tension in the front of your body so it doesn't fall off. And the poor back body loses its tone because it's trying so hard to hold that head up on top of your body. So there's a thing that I teach people. It's called the safe spinal space. So
Ooh.
take your left hand, palm down, thumb touching right underneath your heart. So I don't know if you can see
Mhm.
that, but your thumb is like karate chopping your chest with your palm down. Now take
Mhm.
your right hand, karate chop your tummy right at your belly button with your palm facing up. So your right
Mhm.
palm is up, your left palm is down. You have a space between there. I call
Mhm.
this the safe spinal space,
Mhm.
SSS zone. That space you have right now, don't
Mhm.
let it get smaller.
Mhm.
So if you were going to bend over to put on your clothes or bend over to get something, you would have to bend at the right place, which is the hip
Mhm.
and not in the spine.
Absolutely. I teach that a lot in Pilates, I tell people also like, okay, just stand up straight and they're like this and their heads forward. And I'm like, okay, it's about awareness too. I've learned that if you're not aware of the problem, you can't change it. So a lot of people don't know that they're sitting like this and their heads forward. And, it looks kind of weird when you do it. But when you're aware of it, then they go, oh, wow, now I can stand up a little straighter. And I love the fact that you talked about the stomach because people just, when you pull your stomach in, not suck it in, but pull it in using the abs, it actually supports your spine. And so it's a nice support factor. I love the fact that you said that, Debbie. Thank you. And also about the ice cream, because I'm a huge ice cream person. So three scoops at least ice
Okay,
cream.
but
I'm
wait a
just
minute. But for bone health, you should not eat dairy. So for bone health, I mean, we'll talk physical first. Physical first, what do you do every day?
Mhm,
You learn how to bend in your hip joint. Squat
mhm,
is one of the most simple
mhm,
ways that
mhm,
we have evidence that proves that you
mhm,
need lean skeletal muscles. You need bigger muscles because the bigger
mhm.
muscles will make your bones heavier. They need to be
Yes.
bigger to hold them. And when you start to move your body and you pull and push in your bones
Mhm,
with the
mhm,
forces of bigger, stronger muscles,
mhm,
then you create the bone building stimulation. So
mhm,
muscle and bone building stimulation is important. So squatting, posture is really
mhm,
critical, and then standing on one leg. So those
mhm,
I'm gonna say are the three like physical areas I would say to
mhm.
focus on. And you know what? It doesn't have to be a 1 hour. It doesn't have
No.
to be going to Pilates or yoga.
Mhm,
You could have done 5 things by the time in the first half hour of waking. You brushed your teeth on one leg
mhm,
on one side, the other, stand on the other leg for another minute. You
mhm,
squat when you're heating up your warm water with lemon or your tea or whatever
mhm.
you're doing. And posture is an all day, every day thing.
I think sometimes we think it's got to be hard or it's not effective. And, I'm on this mission to let people know that you don't have to do 40 minutes or an hour. Maybe you could do 10 minutes of something. Maybe you could do a minute of standing. Maybe you can do a minute of, squatting. It doesn't have to be really hard. And my friend Yvonne says, I'm standing on one leg now. So thank you, Yvonne.
Oh, hi, Yvonne. Um, you know what's really so last year in 2023, they came out with a study that said that we need to do 150 minutes of movement a week,
Mhm,
30 minutes, 5 days a week. That's what they said. And then they kind of furthered that and they said, well, but if you can only do 10, that's great. And then they got even more, well, if you could only walk for 2 minutes, that's great.
mhm,
And there's some functional medicine doctors that will say that the number one thing you could do for your health, of course, we need to have better sleep. We need to be hydrated. We need to have a healthy gut. We need to eat well.
mhm,
But movement is so critical to health. If you don't
mhm,
move, if you're stagnant, things in
mhm.
motion stay in motion. And if you don't move, then things get clogged and blocked and they
Yes.
degenerate.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Um, I have another question, then we'll take a quick break. Whenever I know as an athlete, when I would get injured, there's this emotional, mental, like, oh, I got to get back out there, I got to do something. Um, what have you seen for women who are suffering from, maybe an injury, trying to get back to but just trying to be better than where they were. Is there a mental capacity to this? Is there an emotional thing that goes with it?
Yeah, well, always, I think if we treat ourselves like a 2-year-old, and if we think if we had a 2-year-old kid, would we make that kid run and do things quickly? No. So if you
Mhm.
try to treat yourself the way you would a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old,
Mhm.
then you're going to be a little bit more loving with yourself.
Mhm.
Slow and steady wins the race. And I always say that Rome wasn't built in a day, yet it
Mhm.
was built. And that's what I did. I mean, I could not lift my leg off the bed. At 51, I couldn't lift my leg off the bed. When I
Mhm.
was in my yoga classes teaching, I couldn't lift my leg off the floor. I had to help my leg lift up. And so I would stand up and just 1 inch. You know, if my
Mhm.
goal was 2 feet off the floor, I'm gonna do
Mhm.
1 inch, and I might do 1 inch for a week or
Mhm.
slowly and surely. And just not
Um,
too much.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's hard because we're in a hurry, especially now. But you've got to take the time to let your body heal. And while you're healing, letting your mind heal, telling yourself, look, this is going to get better. You're going to have some bad days, you're going to have some good days, but it's going to get better because our body is remarkable in that way. But you just have to give it the time and the space to do so. So let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
All right.
And we are back. We're just going to do a quick reset for anyone who's just joined us. I'm speaking to Debi Robinson, who is a bone health aficionado. She knows her stuff, y'all. And we're talking about, osteopenia, osteoporosis, how we can take care of our bones as we get older. I also want to say if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'm sure Debi will be able to answer any of them that comes her way. And let's keep the conversation going. So Debi, when we are, sometimes we have a glitch sometimes. I'll call it that. And we go to the hospital, we think it's our knee, and then we find out it's that we've got osteopenia. And people tend to like, oh my gosh, and now I can't move. They don't want to move. They're like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't move. I'm not supposed to, even though the doctor tells them they don't want to move. What do you tell them? What do you say to them? Because, and the only reason I bring that up is that my husband was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 32, very young. And his doctor said, don't work out, don't move, don't do anything. And I was like, no, that's not right. So, what do you say to women? Because I'm sure they're a little hesitant to start to move. What do you say to them to get them to feel better about moving?
Well, it's a use it or lose it proposition. So we're going to lose it if we don't use it. But the big thing and what you're touching on there is the mental emotional layer of a diagnosis of
Mhm.
osteopenia or osteoporosis and the all of a sudden awareness of our bones. So the way that I like to think of this, I'm very visual and I like to put it in visual perspective. We don't really think about our bones. And if we were to think about them, we imagine them to be like the stone bricks of a castle, right? They're just
Mhm.
sturdy, they're hard. We know that people fracture them. Maybe we fractured our bone or we had a kid that did or something. And so
Mhm.
you just don't think about your bones. But the minute you get that diagnosis, your stone castle bones feel like sand castle bones to you.
Mhm.
And it is deep, it is emotional, it is mental.
Mhm.
It brings feelings of fragility
Mhm.
and being tentative and cautious. And when we don't move our body, when we don't pull and push on our bones, when we don't strengthen our muscles, we lose more density, muscle density, bone density. And so that actually contributes to more bone loss, which will then lead to osteoporosis or deeper into osteoporosis if your diagnosis started at osteoporosis.
Right.
So really it's this mental emotional layer, which is why, like you made a comment earlier, that awareness is the first step. And it is, because if you walk into a dark room, you don't know where the furniture is or what's in that room. You have to turn on the light and then you say, oh, I better walk this way because I would trip on that table. The chair is there. This is there. That's there. Let me go pick up that thing I'm looking for over there. It's the same. This is what it is. So I'm here to raise awareness to, hey, you've got bones. And here are all the things in your life that could contribute to them dissolving or breaking down. And here's all the things you could do every day in your lifestyle to strengthen them and to make sure that they stay strong.
Yeah. Debi, do you have a story of someone you helped that seemed, sometimes you get a client and you just think, I don't know if I can help them. Do you have a story like that where they were just at that brink of, I don't want to move. You can't make me move, even though they have osteoporosis. Do you have a type of story where you got them to understand how movement was going to help them, and they might even be teaching yoga classes now or doing some kind of movement classes?
Okay. So, I mean, of course I have like so many people that come to mind. But what I'm going to say is that the thing that I consider to be my biggest wins is not necessarily when someone comes to me and tells me, oh my gosh, I got my new bone scan and I reversed my osteoporosis, or look at my numbers are here, there. It really is when people tell me, I feel confident to move, that there's enough education being shared with them that they feel confident to move. And when I teach super descriptively. So my goal is, this is what I tell everybody. I don't want to give them a fish. I want to teach them how to fish. I want them to know how to move when they leave my class. And I say that in every class or even my private sessions, that my goal is that you leave here and you know what you need to do. So yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. And it's not something that bam, well, actually there are bam, the next day they feel it. We do ball work in the arch of our foot for people who have knee and hip issues. And they say, oh my gosh, my knee or my hip doesn't hurt anymore. So maybe one class, they're like, I'm in so much pain, like an 8 or a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And then I'll watch their body. I'll help them find that alignment to unobstruct nerves and to find that alignment and to stretch what needs to be stretched to create space. And then next week they'll say, oh my gosh, I did it every day this week, what you taught me, and I don't hurt anymore. So yes, it happens all the time.
I love that you said something about the feet, because I understand that your posture starts in your feet. And if your feet are messed up, everything above it is messed up. And you want to try to, and people, we don't think about our feet until they hurt, right? And I love the fact that you said that the things that your clients will say to you, that they're confident to move. And I love it when my clients will say, oh, I went on vacation. I kept hearing your voice in my head, Kat, about, Pilates stance and pulling your, and I was like, yes, I love that. I really do. So Debi, are there any, what types of foods could help strengthen our bones? Are there any?
Yeah, well, let me just say something to what you said, because you asked me other things I remember. It happens so often that people will come to tell me a story of them falling and how they fell and they cannot believe they didn't break anything. So they'll tell me, I tripped over this curb, I couldn't believe it. Or this other woman told me, my husband didn't realize I was in the car and the door wasn't shut yet and he started to move it and I fell and da 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 da. And then they tell me, I have a bruise or I'm a little sore here, but I had x-rays and I didn't break anything. So I tell people, I help you be bendable and not breakable, because falling is where the fractures, like most of the fractures come from falling, especially the deadly fractures, the hip fractures, and even the spinal fractures, putting the body is in a force that it can't manage. So we have to have flexibility and range of motion in our joints so our body can manage that stress. So I just wanted to say that I help them be bendable and not breakable. And they tell me their stories of falling and not breaking. And I'm like, yes. So to me, that's a total win.
That sounds like a book.
I just did a program for Aetna. So Aetna,
Oh, wow.
the insurance company, has a program called Healthy at Home with Aetna. And I just did a bendable, not breakable program for them.
I love that title.
Yeah.
Can you talk about maybe, some foods that people could maybe think about eating that might help their bone density?
Yes. So I am a yoga therapist and a functional health coach. And I run my signature program is called Healthy Gut, Healthy Bones, because without a healthy gut, you can't have healthy bones. So the taking care of our gut health and our digestion is so important. So there are things that we can eat that will build bones, and there's things that we eat that dissolve bones. So when we talk about bringing in foods that are going to build bones, we need foods rich in the vitamins, minerals, cofactors, and protein that builds bones. So that would be calcium rich, magnesium rich, potassium rich, and vitamin K. Then you need manganese, boron, and protein. So those are, you need those sources. And to believe it or not, most of those things are in plant-based foods. So eating as many seeds, nuts, especially if you don't have any allergies to nuts, you can get food sensitivity tested for that, or you might know you're reactive. So eating green vegetables, lots of colors, and seasonally. It's also, they're going to support gut health. So you want to support your bone building bacteria in your gut. So eating prebiotic rich fiber, those are your root vegetables, artichokes. Olives are good for gut health. Fermented foods to help support digestion and the species, the bone building species. We want to do that. So those are like foods, not just thinking about, let me eat this chicken because it'll build my bones, or let me eat this kale because it'll build my bones. It has vitamin K. Let me eat this kale because it's going to have this many nutrients that will support my gut health, support digestion, like, not just one thing, it's everything.
Right.
So all of those, but the bigger thing I think is the foods we should avoid. And this is what is not known as much. Gluten is terrible, terrible, terrible for bone health, for gut health, for thyroid health, for fat metabolism. So getting rid of gluten is the number one thing I would say. The number two thing is getting rid of dairy. And that people are actually eating more dairy thinking that they're going to get protein or protein, calcium, and probiotics.
Right.
But it's actually highly inflammatory. And the proteins in milk are inflammatory. So triggering inflammation is going to lead to bone loss. Gluten, dairy, no. Sugar triggers inflammation, and inflammation is a major root cause of bone loss. Then you have caffeine because it's dehydrating, and dehydrated bones are more likely to snap, crackle, and pop. And we want that in our cereal that's gluten-free with a non-dairy milk, but not in our bones.
Right.
And alcohol, because alcohol is going to mess with your liver, it's going to mess with your hormones, and we need all that. So from a food perspective, you want to support digestion, support gut health, and support the nutrients that build bones. And then you want to make sure you eliminate the foods that dissolve bones.
Wow. That's a lot to take in, but it's starting with one thing, right? It's starting with one thing and then building from there. Like, you don't start working out and run a marathon. You just don't put your shoes on and start running. You have to walk first and then, go from there. So thank you for that, Debbie, because that makes a lot of sense. I know you had mentioned how your stomach or your microbiome is affiliated with bone health. So can you give us a little more information about that, about the why?
Yeah, so it's called the gut-bone connection. And at the top of the funnel for building bones, there's two things you have to do. Two things. So every day, do these two things. One of them is muscle and bone building stimulation. That's going to be standing on your leg, walking, squatting, Pilates, yoga, weight resistance training. So you have to pull and push and create strong forces to build stronger muscles and stronger bones. The other thing you need are the nutrients to build bones.
Mhm.
And you have to make sure those nutrients get from mouth to bone. And the pathway to get to mouth to bone is through the gut. So we have to first chew our food. So chew your food, because digestion, well, the physical digestion begins in the mouth. So chew your food. You want to make sure you don't eat too fast, eat too much. You don't want to drink water or a beverage with your meal, because you don't want to dilute your gastric juices, the acid that breaks down food. You want to keep it robust. Drink before you eat and hydrate the system to be better at digesting food. So we want to make sure that digestion is optimized. Then you have small intestines. We want to make sure that your bacteria that maintains your fortress, your mucosal barrier, is optimized. So now we need probiotics, and we need the good gut microbes. And this is where food feeds the good gut microbes. We need to eat prebiotic and probiotic rich foods.
I'm always confused by prebiotic and probiotic. I mean, I know what they mean. I had to look it up. It's like, can you just explain real quick why someone would take a prebiotic versus a probiotic, or do they take both?
Prebiotics are the foods for the bacteria. Probiotics are the bacteria. So when we take probiotics, we're repopulating our gut with the bacteria. The prebiotic fibers are when we are feeding. So the fiber, so the number one thing that will support your bone building bacteria in your gut is fiber. So eating 30 grams of fiber is the recommended target for the day. And most people eat maybe 8.
Yeah.
So this is going to be nuts, seeds, legumes, vegetables. That's where your fiber is.
Yeah. It's, and you're so right in that it's not just this one thing. It's everything we do for our health. It's all the little one things. You do one thing here and one thing here, and all of a sudden, you're taking care of your body the way you should be. And I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with, oh, you should be doing this, well, you should be doing that, you should take a prebiotic, you do a probiotic, and you kind of go, whoa. But I think that if we just took one thing and did one thing that was good for our gut, something that was good for our body and our bones, I think if we did the one thing, for our whole body, that we would all be a whole lot healthier. I'm just going to put it out there. Maybe not, but I'm hoping that could change. So, Debi, during midlife, especially for women, we're going through perimenopause and menopause. How do hormonal changes affect bone health?
The greatest decrease of bone loss is around perimenopause or menopause, or even under cancer treatments where they're blocking hormones.
Yes.
So why is that? Because estrogen, testosterone are bone protective hormones. And so it is the biggest decrease when we're losing our hormones and we lose bone density. So there's such a strong link between the two. And so I'm a big proponent of HRT. And on my podcast, I interviewed a doctor that is the hormone harmonizer, and she balances hormones. She's a big proponent of HRT. So much research out there. We all got the heebie-jeebies scared out of us in the early 2000s with the Women's Health Initiative, that it leads to heart attacks and to strokes. But what happened when they stopped all those hormones is that increased risk of fractures. So hormones, like I love BHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement. And for those that can't do that, because there's some ladies that fall into that category, although most can. So if you've had a hormone-specific cancer or current cancer, then you're not the candidate for that. There's also foods that are estrogenic or that support estrogen. So tofu is a fantastic food. Lots of research in Japan, even women with cancer eating tofu. So tofu is a great food for that. And foods that support hormones. And again, the gut, you have to have a healthy gut, and you have to have a healthy liver, because the liver metabolizes our hormones. And there's certain pathways, like one of the functional labs that I run looks at metabolic pathways of hormones. And there's one pathway that your body metabolizes your hormones. And if you're not metabolizing down, there's one pathway that's considered the carcinogenic or the yucky pathway. We don't want to be down that pathway. We want to be metabolizing down the other pathways. So from a functional perspective, we need everything to be functioning properly for all facets of health, including hormone health, bone health.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of BHRT. It made me feel, how can I say this nicely? Like I'm a person again. Uh, yes. But it's a personal decision, for anyone who's thinking of it. And always go to your doctor and, talk about it with your doctor about what, might be the best way for you to go. Debi, what are some common misconceptions about bone health in midlife?
That it's inevitable, and that when you get it, it just gets worse. And the only tool in the toolbox for conventional medicine are medications. The medications that stop bone dissolving, which means you're going to now have really unhealthy bone with new bone building. So it's a shaky foundation, kind of like building a house on quicksand. And then the other ones build up, but once you commit to that, you can't just go off. And then you need to take these or the bisphosphonates, because then you have to make sure you don't lose what you just built up. So the misconceptions are that there's a pill for osteoporosis, because there isn't. It is not just one thing. It is many things. It's lifestyle approach. So the misconceptions are that it's not reversible, that a pill will fix it, and that it's an inevitable part of aging. All wrong.
Yeah. It's just like building muscle. People think, oh, I'm too far gone. I've never, worked out before or, worked out with weights. It's never too late to build muscle. You always have muscle. You just have to make it work for you. And the way you make it work for you is by working out, whether it's walking, whether it's lifting weights. And it doesn't have to be these huge weights, but, just doing more than what you've been doing is what I want to tell people. And I love that, because people tend to think they get a diagnosis. They're like, oh, well, that's it for me. I can't do anything, So I love the fact that you talk about those misconceptions. So I know that I had just touched on this a little bit, but when we talk about lifestyle changes, what can you give just some tips on some lifestyle changes that people can make, that doesn't require a whole lot? And I say walking, because walking is you put your shoes on, you walk. But do you have any other easy lifestyle changes that people could just incorporate like right now?
Yeah. So standing on the legs, one leg when they're brushing their teeth, heating up tea, and be near a wall, or don't hold on to a chair. Push into the chair to activate postural muscles. So don't grab on, push down. So standing on one leg all day, every day. Practice squatting or pushing your tushy back to sit down. Practice bending at your hip joint, not your spine. And then keep your spine, that safe spinal space, or that lengthened spine, those 3 scoops of ice cream, pelvis, rib cage, head, in alignment throughout your day. So that's the physical. Then mental, emotional, take 3 doses of vitamin G before bed and when you wake up. And vitamin G is gratitude.
I love that.
You cannot be grateful and unhappy at the same time. So when you start to go into your pity party, your depression, what you don't have, you need to think about what you do have. So 3 doses of vitamin G, present moment, that'll bring you to the present moment, bring you to the conscious brain, the prefrontal cortical smart brain. So vitamin G, and deep breaths. Take deep breaths. So you regulate your nervous system, you regulate blood sugar, and that'll also support digestion. So that's mental, emotional. And then biochemical, sit down to eat, prepare to eat. If your body is scared, if you're watching the news and you are scared, they're doing this, they're taking this, they have this, he this, she this happened, that happened. If you are not sitting and eating and being in the moment with your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, your body, then your body is not in a state of digestion. And if you're not in a state of digestion, you're not going to digest the food. The food can't get from mouth to bones.
Mm. Wow. I hope y'all are taking writing down this stuff, because I'm gonna have to look at the replay again and write some of this stuff down. I love to say, when you said vitamin G, the gratitude, I call it the what didn't suck today list. So I'm like, oh yeah, this didn't suck. This didn't suck. This was good. And I think what I've been doing lately, when you talked about breathing, and I'm glad that you brought that up, I've been doing alternate nostril breathing, which just really and I've been doing it before bed. I'm laying in bed, I'm watching something on TV, doing the alternate nostril breathing. It's almost instantaneous, is
Yeah.
what I want to say.
Yeah, it's called Nadi Shodhana, because in yoga, like you mentioned earlier about the feet and the breakdown of the feet for posture, which is true. So the feet are the communication up to the brain, right, for balance. And the energy, or the nerve endings, or the energy centers, begin in the feet, and they terminate in yoga at the nostrils. It's where the nadis terminate. So now you have the brain above that. So with the alternate nostril breath, what we're doing is we are balancing out both hemispheres of the brain. So we are balancing our brain physically. We are balancing the biochemistry. We are balancing back and forth. So alternate nostril, Nadi Shodhana, is the Sanskrit term. Really effective, great balancing breath.
Would you mind showing us how you do it, so that people can have a visual?
Okay. So sit upright, close your eyes, and sit upright. Make sure your legs aren't crossed. When we cross our legs, we stop the flow. We stop the flow of lymph and blood. So close your eyes, sit upright, take your hands, slide your hands back so that your elbows are underneath your shoulders. That's going to bring your shoulder blades onto your back. That's going to help to hold you upright. You're not up against the back of the chair. Now take your right hand, and you're going to use the thumb to close off the right nostril. And if you only need to touch the round part of your nostril to close off the flow of air, and then take your pinky and your ring finger to close off, bend your pointer finger and your middle finger. Wait, so here's your pointer, middle, bend those, bend them.
Okay.
Thumb to close off the right, and ring and pinky to close off the left. Yes.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So you're just going to move back and forth between these. Okay. So close your eyes, close off your right nostril, and start breathing in and out through your left nostril. Just through the left nostril. Now, this breath just through the left nostril is called moon breathing, and it's calming for the nervous system. So let's prepare. Take an exhale through the left. Let's begin. Inhale left. Close off the left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close off the right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close off the left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close off the right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close off the left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close off the right. Exhale left. Keep your eyes closed. Put your hands on your lap and breathe through both nostrils. Keep your mouth closed. Feel the breath coming in your nostrils. Feel the breath coming into your body. Feel the breath going down to your belly. Bring your awareness to your eyelids. Do not pop them open. Let them gently blink themselves open.
Oh, I love that.
And you'll notice that you feel calm. A few minutes of breath.
Yes. It's so immediate.
It's powerful. It's
so immediate.
It's the most beneficial thing we do in yoga.
Oh, I love it. I think it's just, like I said, I've been doing it before. I go to, like I'll be laying in bed, and I have a bed where you can raise the head and raise the legs, so I'm in an upright position, and I'll just breathe. And all of a sudden my husband goes, wow, I left the room, you were awake, and I came back and you were asleep. And I was like, it's that alternate nostril breathing. It works every time, every time. Debi, this has been such an amazing conversation because I'm learning stuff. This is awesome. When I try to be a lifelong learner because I love how to, anything that can make our lives just that much better. You know what I mean? That much better. I think it's just amazing. Debi, where can people find you if they want to reach out or they have other questions for you?
My website is debirobinson.com. So DEBI Robinson.com. And my YouTube channel is Debi Robinson Wellness. I actually teach a live yoga class that's donation based every Thursday. So at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard. So if anybody wants to practice with me, I am live at 11 a.m. every Thursday. I'm in LA. So it's Pacific Standard Time, 11. So you got to figure that out in whatever your time zone is. And DebiRobinson.com. And yeah, I mean, that's the best way. My podcast is Stronger Bones Lifestyle. And I interview a lot of great speakers, a lot of physicians, a lot of doctors that are functionally minded that really understand this. Osteoporosis is reversible because that's my big thing. Bone loss is reversible. So yeah, those are the places to go.
Well, thank you again, Debi, for being on. This has just been remarkable. And I hope anyone listening, even if it's on the replay, this woman knows her stuff, man. She's lived it, she walks it, she does it, she knows what she's talking about. And I kind of want to do the yoga thing. I want to take her class because I think that would be very cool. But I hope you'll stay tuned for day 4, which is tomorrow. I will have the amazing Yvonne Marchese on. We're going to be talking about, play in midlife and how it can help you with your health. Didn't know that, did you? Playing like a child, thinking like a child, getting on the floor and playing, not exactly play, but I still love a swing. I'm just going to say I will stop and swing in a heartbeat. But she's going to be on tomorrow. We're going to be talking about ways that we can incorporate some fun into our everyday busy lives. Remember, you can go to the website, Small Space Pilates at, I can't even say it, smallspacepilates.com/revitalize, where you can look at all the speakers and actually go to their website, which you'll find all the information for Debi. And Debi, thank you again. You've been such an awesome guest. So until next time, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for